Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review new movies and television shows and try to release a new review every day from Monday to Friday. Today's movie, True Spirit, is based on the true story of a 16-year-old girl from Australia sailing around the world by herself on a sailboat. True Spirit was written and directed by Sarah Spillane and co-written by Rebecca Banner and Kathy Randall. It's mostly true to the original story but dramatizes some of the events for storytelling purposes. Like when her sailboat gets submerged 15 feet underwater and somehow stays airtight despite there being windows and a sliding door leading below deck. The film opens with the 16-year-old Jessica Watson, played by Tegan Croft, going on a dry run before her big trip. It's late at night and she settles into bed on her sailboat. Then a nightmarish sound cuts through the air and her ship is violently shaken. She looks outside to see a cargo ship running alongside her tiny sailboat and quickly straps herself onto her bed. She holds on for dear life and waits for the ship to pass. Luckily, she and the sailboat survive without much damage. This sets the stage for a dramatic tale about a teenager crossing the ocean on her own. The film covers Jessica's personal journey through the big moments leading up to her trip, the big moments on her trip, and all of the fanfare surrounding her ordeal. To start off, I want to talk about the journey itself. Despite being a movie about a trip across the ocean, the movie spends surprisingly little time with Jessica actually sailing. Instead, most of the time is spent on the emotional journey rather than the physical one. The majority of it is split between Jessica below deck on her sailboat and her coach Ben and her family back in Australia. They talk on the phone and we see how they're dealing with the stress of the situation and how they handle the press waiting outside their home. There's lots of inspiring music, dramatic speeches, and shots of the journey taking its toll on all of their mental well-being. The ocean is seen in the background, and there are a few scenes where the physical journey takes center stage, but for the most part, the ocean and the boat are aesthetic vehicles for the drama. Anna Paquin as Jessica's mother, Josh Lawson as Jessica's father, Cliff Curtis as Ben the coach, and Todd Lassance as the reporter all put on emotional performances that see them grapple with the gravity of the situation. There is lots of crying and the cast looks stressed out the entire time. With every bit of good news, we see the family and those following her journey cry out in relief and joy, and every dark note paints their world gray. Tegan Croft as Jessica goes through an emotional journey. She has to overcome the hardships of sailing across the ocean and contends with the crippling loneliness that comes with it. She takes center stage during her monologues to the camera and expresses her emotions well during the conversations with Ben and her family. The scenes on the ocean are beautiful, and the film takes the time to make each of them feel somewhat unique. There's a torrential storm with waves that crash onto the boat and fling Jessica around, a scene of the stars reflecting off of the ocean. Jessica sails near a pod of whales, and there's even a comically sized wave that her boat rides up just like the one in Pinocchio. The few times when Jessica has to deal with a crisis on the boat make for tense scenes, but they're short and often end with no lasting consequences, despite the violent nature of the scenes. Jessica gets tossed around like a rag doll and hit in the head with flying objects, but often looks pristine in the very next scene. It makes it hard to take the danger seriously. As the journey goes on, she continues to look pristine despite what's happening. Her clothes are ironed and her makeup is always perfect. You would think at some point she would start to look disheveled or worn out, but she doesn't. Sound-wise, the film has a few original songs and a lot of emotional background music, inspirational instrumentals, touching piano tracks, and tense, fast-paced violins. It's dramatic to the nth degree, often feels repetitive, and ends up achieving the opposite of its intended effect. The third time I heard the inspirational track, my eyes almost got stuck rolling back in my head. Overall, I found True Spirit to be a somewhat boring and overly dramatic story about a kid on a boat. There are a few good shots of her dealing with the ocean and a few warm and fuzzy speeches, but there is also a lot of wasted time. There is a lot of time spent on newscasts of the event, on flashbacks that didn't add anything to the story, and on characters that aren't really relevant. They try to fit in too many elements and forget to build out the journey, and they fail to get across the gravity of the situation. The music is in your face, obnoxious, and the visuals are nice when they're on the ocean, but otherwise are filled with shaky shots of people hanging around talking. The real story might be inspirational, but the way the film presents it isn't. Jessica Watson in the film is a prime example of the saying, "It's better to be lucky than smart." 5 out of 10.